Curling now enters the Sports Weekend spotlight.
What a difference a week makes, Colleen.
No one saw this coming, did they? I went to bed last night, read Team Bottcher's account of Darren Moulding leaving the team, and I thought, whoa, there was no sign of that. Although they didn't have the Olympic trials performance that they wanted, finishing 3 and 5. Didn't see that coming mid-season, I got to say.
No doubt. And a week ago, Call, of course, we were all catching our breath after that thrilling women's final. Jennifer Jones going to the Olympics. We were awaiting who was going to be the men's representative. We knew it was going to be a Brad. And of course, Colleen Gushue is going back to the games.
Yeah, Brad Gushue going on. And what a convincing win. Not necessarily against Brad Jacobs, but just his entire week marching to that final and heading back to the Olympic Games after he and Mark Nichols were there so long ago, 2006. It was a remarkable week. But in some ways, I'm not going to say this upstages that, but this is big news.
This is big news, and that is, curling fans, why we're having this special Sunday edition of That Curling Show. For you to get into it, of course, it's been a turbulent 48 hours. As you said, Colleen, we've seen the post that happened late Friday night. There it is, Team Bottcher saying that the team and vice skip Darren Moulding have parted ways. Of course, the big thing we want to talk about, of course, Colleen, the personal reasons and that Darren is taking time away from the game. And then, of course, we saw what unfolded after that call.
Well, yes, Darren Moulding. This has become a little bit of a social media and Twitter war because then Darren Moulding posted back that was BS and that's not why he was leaving the team. And, you know, this is such a popular team that this is why people have always talked about the strong chemistry, this band of brothers. They were runner-up so many times in the Brier before winning it last year. It made them more lovable, partly because Darren Moulding looked like every man out there, like he maybe could curl in a beer lake, no offense to Darren Moulding. And then Brendan Bottcher was the wise, make everything skip, who was extremely patient and caring, and we know that is the guy he is, towards his team. But the Bottcher Express is definitely, Canada-wide, dearly loved, and this is why this has become so passionate on social media.
And that is why we are going to the two people closest to this story, of course. And this show doesn't happen, Colleen, you and I have talked about it all the time, without the curlers and the accessibility. And that's why we wanted to have first Brendan Bottcher onto the show to tell his side of the story. And so gracious of him to join us here today. We'll bring him on the show right now. Brendan, thank you for joining us because I know it has been a busy last 48 hours and you've seen it all. You did the press conference just a couple of hours ago, but walk us through the last 48 hours for you, starting with the meeting that you had where this decision was made.
Thanks, Devin, and thanks, Colleen. I appreciate having me on. I'd actually like to start by saying I appreciate that you led with Brad Gushue winning the trials and having an opportunity to go back to the Olympics. I'd like to say congrats to him. He's been outstanding, and he's definitely deserving to go. And I'm going to be excited to watch him play there. So that's excellent, and I'm glad that was kind of the first thing you kicked off with because I do think that is the big story. Ultimately, there's never a good time to do these things. There really isn't. And there's always going to be a tough conversation in there. There's always going to be some emotion involved. I think those things are all reasonable. And at the end of the day, we put out a press release that I was happy with at the time. I think I understand now why just some of the verbiage in there implied some things that might not have been true. And for that, I felt the need to come and clarify that because that was never my intention in the slightest. I think me and the other guys, we wish Darren the absolute best, whether that's on the ice, off the ice, just in general life, we want him to be happy and we want him to be fulfilled. And that's really the message I want to drive home here. And, chemistry is a tough thing to talk about in sport. I mentioned it a couple times earlier today. It feels like you have chemistry. It feels like you're all pulling in the same direction. You have that spark, that energy. And then one day you don't. and it's really tough to put your finger on what chemistry is. It's not a tangible thing that you can just hold and carry with you. And when you go through a cycle and that chemistry is not there, it's tough. So, I'll circle around. There was never a good time to do this, but I think all things considered, we made a decision for the fit and the chemistry of our team moving forward. And despite maybe a little bit of messaging in the last couple of days, I think that was the right decision, and I'm excited for the future.
Why did you choose, though, Brendan, to use the word personal reasons if now in hindsight you realize maybe that was misleading?
Yeah, so personal reasons for me might, and again, maybe I'll restart here. I'm not someone with a communications degree, and I don't have a team of people, advising me what to say and how to say it all the time. To me, personal reasons was a neutral way for us to part ways. It allowed him and us to both go our separate ways and chart whatever course we wanted. I was trying to open as many doors as possible for everyone because, after 5 successful years together, that's just what we deserve. All of us deserve to be happy and healthy and have success in the future. So that's really what I was trying to do. And then as soon as I realized that, personal reasons might imply something else to other people, that's immediately where stop. We need to clarify what was said, because that was never my intention. It really wasn't.
You said it. The timing is never going to be great. Change is hard. But I think the big thing, Brendan, that people are really latching onto is the timing. Changes in curling is nothing new. We've seen it time and time again. We're going to talk about that. But why now? Because you had this meeting on Friday. It doesn't seem, though, that one singular meeting can lead to this. You talked about chemistry. You talked about whether or not you could pinpoint the time. But why, when you had the opportunity to go back as Team Canada, and that's 2 months away? How hard was it to play on the same team right now?
I'll actually start by rewinding the tape a little bit. So how Darren joined our team 5 years ago was because we lost a player at Christmas time. So this does happen. I know the timing of it might seem a little unique for everyone else, but this has happened with us before even. So I think in some ways we've kind of come full circle, but it's tough, and you're 100% right that no one conversation is the reason for anything. I would also expand on that and say no one event is the reason for anything. I'll be honest, the trials wasn't our best week in the last 4 years. I think everyone that watched us, that's a pretty honest assessment. And we all have to go back and reflect on what that looks like and figure out how, when we're in similar situations in the future, how do we play that a little bit better? And that's some soul searching that we have to do. It's what top athletes have to do in all sport. And I think it's worthwhile noting, that the teams are so good these days, not only in Canada, but internationally. Everyone is so strong. And I think really that pursuit of that chemistry and getting that spark back that we had with Darren a few years ago, and we've had with Darren not that long ago, but now is just no longer with us anymore. I think the pursuit of that chemistry is really what we're chasing here. And ultimately, I have a responsibility to my guys, not only to my guys, but to our fans, to our sponsors, to try and get as much of that chemistry as we can. We obviously still have a pretty good schedule left in the season here. We've got a big event to play in the Brier, and then we're going to be looking forward into the future.
As a longtime skip, I think the first time I had to get rid of somebody was 1979, and I've had to do it at least 30 times since then. And then I was dumped as well. So I certainly know the emotions of what goes through when you make a team change. And I can tell curling fans right now, Brendan's not the first person to do this. It happens literally every year. And everybody at the Olympic trials was talking about the possible new teams that would be coming up as soon as this curling season was over. But my question for you, Brendan, is did you expect this to blow up like this, and that there would be an avalanche of what seems like criticism? That was always baked into the calculus. I think you have to factor that in when you make the choice. I knew there was going to be some hard feelings. Unfortunately, there always is. And for some reason in curling, it feels like we're graded on another scale than a lot of other sports. I mean, other sports are very comfortable trading players almost constantly. They'll trade top players for
They'll give a one-line reason right before the playoffs. They'll trade cup contending athletes. There's movement all over, and that's just generally accepted. And in curling, it's harder because A, we have to do it ourselves. We don't have a GM that just makes those choices. And B, we have to manage kind of all the communications after that ourselves, because we don't have the huge support staff that a bunch of other professional athletes have. So I'll rewind and say, I understand why Darren's emotional and why he's feeling some emotion on this. I would add to that all of my guys felt a lot of emotion on this. It certainly wasn't a one-way street. And I would just like to end with, I want nothing but the absolute best for Darren. I want nothing but the absolute best also for Kark, Brad, Don, Pat, and myself. I think all 6 of us deserve that. We're 6 genuinely good people. And I wish us all just the most success here in the future.
Do you have anybody in mind to take over that position, Brendan?
Today, no, I don't. I've spent a lot of energy explaining how, the decision we made was not a decision because we had someone in the wing waiting to step in. That's definitely the truth. And because we're in that pursuit of that chemistry and that cohesion and all of that intangible stuff, I want to take the time to find the right person. I want someone that's going to fit in really well, be just an excellent addition to our team, and really builds that spark back and build that chemistry back so that we can have the proper fit and we can go forward as a really cohesive unit.
Does that mean breaking up a different team to add to your team, or does that mean waiting until provincial and territorial playdowns complete?
I'm not willing to speculate right now. I haven't evaluated a bunch of options yet. I'm still sorting through what the future looks like, and that's going to take a little bit of time. And I think we're fortunate this year. I don't have to register a team for playdowns next week. I have a little bit of time, and I'm going to use that time to make sure we get the right person in that role.
What have you learned through all of this, Brendan? You said you're not a communications major. But
he's actually pretty good at it.
Well, he has been upfront with everything today, but I wonder what you have learned through this and what responsibilities you take. You said you're the skip and you have a responsibility to look after your team.
This is going to sound cliche, but breakups are tough. They're tough on everyone involved. And, the reason they're tough is because everyone cares. Everyone cares a lot. And I think, maybe that's not news to me, but just how this has all transpired has really shown that to me again. You've got people that invest so much into a pursuit, and then at one day that pursuit ends, and there's a lot of emotion that is a part of that. So I think that's healthy to work through all that emotion. I really do think it is. And I'll just finish with, I want Darren to be successful in the future. I want us to be successful in the future. However that looks, and I'll leave it there.
I've always said it's like a divorce, and all of a sudden you fall out of love with the person and you just need to break up, and everybody's got a different side of why it went wrong too. We are going to have Darren Moulding on a little bit later on, so we know that we have not talked to him yet, but we know in some of the things in social media posts he's been talking about financial transparency. So what of that? I mean, is there an equal share of the team? What's the concern there?
So I've been pretty transparent with everyone here in the last couple of days. Every dollar that our team gets, whether it's winnings, sponsorship, funding, carding, is split equally 4 ways. It always has, and it always will be. And the other thing I would add on that note is I'm not the only one that runs our team books. Maybe that hasn't been in the news, partly because I haven't thought it was that important, but I'm not the only one that sees how money's spent and how things are done. So we do have some accountability on our team that's baked in. I'm a little sorry that the conversation has got down this road, because I think it's distracted from the larger talk about whether that's chemistry or fit or whatever that future looks like. I want that to be really positive. But I'm willing to be fully transparent, as I have been with my guys, that this is a 4-way deal, and it always has been.
We only wanted to ask the question because we know Darren might bring it up in 5 minutes time. So we didn't want to not pose that to you as well.
Thank you, Brendan, for coming on the show. We know it's been a busy last couple of days for you. We appreciate you coming on. We think it's important that you were here. And like I said, we're grateful that you were on the show today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Devin and Colleen.
Thank you.
Take care. So there's the first part of the story, Colleen.
Yeah, and as I said, this has been going on in curling for a long, long time, where changes are made. It's not always with a team that's going to be wearing Team Canada at the Briar. It's often at the end of the season that it happens, and that's why this story has resonated for so many people. But curling changes happen all the time, and they're tough on all parties. The person, and as Brendan has said, it's always the skip that makes the call. No one wants it to be a GM. I mean, no one wants that. But it is emotionally taxing when this happens to a team.
Yeah, and we do have examples of some dramatic curling breakups over the years. Of course, you and I were talking about it leading into the show. Everybody can remember Kathy O and Jennifer Jones. That was an example of, Colleen, would you go as far as to say that was really the big first public breakup?
Definitely, it was very bitter. And again, there's a lot on the line, because for a lot of teams now, this is more than curling, it's a business. And especially when you become a carded athlete and get your money every month from Sport Canada, you don't want to lose that money. You also are very well sponsored. So there's a lot of money coming in from the sponsors. And a lot of that is spent when you think about the costs of running a team and flying to all of these different bonspiels. It is expensive to handle a team like that. And then there's the prize money. So a lot of people now look at curling as a business. So so this Jennifer and Kathy Overton-Clapton, that was sort of a very emotional and at times bitter breakup that really hurt the team for a while. Right.
And one, another skip we've talked about, and I've had a lot of conversations with, Kevin Cooey. He's not afraid to make changes. In fact, he's been blunt about the fact that he believes you have to make changes, Colleen, to evolve and to keep up with the level of competition. We can't forget, of course, at the end of the 2014 season, the change Cooey made, and they were Team Canada. They went to the Briar the next year, and of course, Cooey formed a new team, all in the hopes of building to the Olympics in 2018. And guess what? That paid off, because his team ended up winning the Olympic trial. So that was another example.
And Cooey had dropped Colton Flash about 18 months ago, picked up John Morris. That probably more than disappointed Colton Flash, who thought he was going to be making a run for the Olympic trials with Cooey. Right. So these kind of things play out all the time. Right. The thing about Brendan Bottcher's team that's made them lovable, though, is this run they went on for the last 4 years, and then finally winning the Briar. And we feel like we got to know each of them as lovable people. And then when something like this happens, saying a death in the family might be overstating it, but emotionally, it's very hard for the team, and it's extremely hard for the fans who've come to join the Bottcher Express.
So one of the conversations I've had in circles over the last couple of years, and we heard a bit about that from Brendan, is you're a curler, your teammates, your friends, and you're a general manager. No other sport are you put into that position. And Chelsea Carey put it so beautifully in a story I wrote last year. You're the general manager, but you're also the player. In other sports, there are people making the decisions. And here's the key to it all for me. It's a setup for there to be heartbreak and betrayal. They're your friends, and then they're saying you're off the team.
Yeah, and those words are really so appropriate, because that's exactly what it's like. Having said that, I haven't met a skip who would want somebody else doing that kind of cutting, because it's the skip. Yes, it's a team, but it's often the skip that's saying, okay, I feel, not necessarily in this case, but my 30 years of knowing how you have to change teams to keep growing them and making them better. And you see the holes, or you see the lack of commitment from one person, and you want to grab another person that's up and coming. You realize you're the person that wants to make those decisions. Skips are used to a lot of control in this aspect. I don't think you're ever going to see a change of that. As much as it hurts when you got to make that cut.
All right, let's now bring in Darren Moulding. I know everyone's been waiting to hear from him, and he's been gracious with his time. And Darren, it's great to see you. A wild 48 hours for you, no doubt. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm actually just in the middle of my 8 hours of driving today. I drove my boy back down south, so I'm down there now, and you're my lunch break right now.
How has it been for you these last 24, 48 hours?
Wild, crazy. On Friday when I packed up Brady to drive out to Carrick's place, I could have never imagined the next 48 hours. Yeah, it's been pretty wild.
So
no hint at all?
Yeah, exactly. No hint at
Car-
all.
Carrick phoned me while I was driving to his house and told me he wasn't sure what was going to happen, but that I might be in trouble. So he gave me a little bit of a heads up, but maybe a 45-minute heads up.
What did you believe you were going to have a meeting about?
Well, I knew we had problems. To be honest with you, I pretty much hated every second on the ice this fall. I would have rather been at my home club in Lacombe working. So that to me is a relief that I'm done with that. For my own happiness, right? So that to me is the biggest good part about this, is I have my life back again. So I'm just grateful for that. And yeah, you know, I in May I tried to leave the team. And Carrick, because he's been the glue of our team a lot of times, actually, and people don't know this. He kept us together. And I didn't want to keep playing after our meeting in April, and it was probably a mistake for me to continue playing, to be honest with you. Not continue curling, but just continuing playing with this team. I just feel like maybe the fall was a little bit of a waste of time for all of us. But, you know, I tried to make it work for another few months. So in a way, I'm grateful that this happened as early as it did, because I definitely want to continue playing it. And I think I have a lot to offer still. So
Why did it become so poisonous for you that you wanted to quit in May and then you had a miserable fall?
anybody who knows me knows that I just don't do things in my life that I'm unhappy with. And I don't have a high tolerance for that, which is why the bubble's really hard for me. Because for me, as much as I love to curl, if it means devaluing myself or doing something that's not within my moral compass, I just can't do it. And so I mean, I get in trouble sometimes because I can't lie very well. I just can't hide it when I'm unhappy with something. So in trying to have some discussions over the last, I'd say 3 years, I've just realized that basically in April, I realized that was it for us after we had that meeting. And the disappointing part to me is that my teammates kind of backed me, like not Brendan, but Brad in particular, kind of stoked that fire. And then when I went in to say what we had talked about, he didn't stick up for me in that meeting. And so I knew at that point I was done. And it was just a matter of when, and I wanted it to be on my own terms. And that's why I kind of wanted to stop in May, because I knew like Brendan would eventually cut me. And he knew how much the Lethbridge Prior meant to me. And I think that's part of the reason he cut me. So, you know, like I said earlier today, he's savage, and he doesn't really feel like for people that much. So I knew that he would do it as hard as he could to me. And that's why I stuck up for myself when they put that statement out that was false, because I don't want my curling career or my friends and family to worry about me. So I was forced to put out a statement to protect my family and my friends and everybody that cares about me, because people who've known me for a long time, when they see something like that go up, there might have been a few people that were worried. So yeah, no, I just appreciate everybody's support, and I really wouldn't change the way I've handled it other than maybe leaving in May.
We just had Brendan on, and he wishes you, just for the record, nothing but the best. At least that is what he's saying, and that hope you're happy, etc. So what was the tipping point in this last meeting you had that led to you being off the team?
Well, there was no tipping point. I walked in and I was cut. Like the decision had already been made, and actually they didn't tell me that they were going to put that statement out that night, and they didn't tell me what it was going to say. So I was actually driving home and my phone started blowing up, and so I had to do something. Like when I say blowing up, I mean hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages, and I didn't even know that the announcement had been made, so I had to pull over and get caught up. I don't mind that they cut me. Like that's fine. Just the way it was handled. Really, we probably should have done this before. So
Well, to that point, Darren, and thank you for your candidness, but to that point, I'm trying to imagine your position of knowing you have an Olympic trials ahead of you, knowing that your Team Canada, not far from where you grew up, and yet you're sharing so candidly how torturous in ways this was to be on the ice with this team. How did you manage to balance all of that with the dream of curling at the Olympics and its Team Canada versus this toxic situation?
just I wanted to curl in the briar in front of my boy. But yeah, that was what kept me going. And Karek kept me going. He's a good dude, good friend. So, you know, I love him.
Yeah. Well, it's heartbreaking. You're not going to get to play in front of your favorite fan, your boy. Tell me about what happens for you curling wise now.
Well, I'm going to get another team and come back and beat their butts. I promise. Yeah, no, that I'm motivated. And I felt like I wanted to quit a month ago. But it's not the sport. It's not the game. I've been a curler my whole life. Like, this is what I do. It's just the situation that we were in. It wasn't fun anymore. So in my next situation, I'm going to find that transparency and that team that I know works, because when we had that, we were great. And I know that I can be a part of something like that again, and even better, because the next setup's going to be a lot more healthy. And so I feel like the best is still yet to come for my curling career and also for my future teammates. And this is the fuel that provides the fire to go on. So,
well, breakups are never easy, but I mean, really, when you won that Brier last year, I mean, does that not just still fill you with nothing but joy?
I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of that even for all four of us, because when we were going good, it was beautiful. We can't forget those times. Like 2018 and 19 to me was the prime time for Team Bottcher, the way it was set up. We were really that close. What you saw on TV was real. And I know that it can be done again. And I just feel like a couple things happened that kind of undid some of the progress we had made. Like Brendan was responding well, and we had a great thing going. Like, I wouldn't take back any of that. That's a very positive time in my life. Maybe COVID changed things a little bit, just it changed our dynamic in that I couldn't leave the hotel when I needed to. And, before that, I would hang out with different friends at curling events and stuff like that. So I'm definitely willing to take, some of the responsibility on my shoulders as well for the chemistry change. Maybe sometimes when you deal with somebody for so long and then maybe you win what you were kind of going after, you might decide that you're not putting up with that anymore. And these problems that came out, over the past week were there for years, to be honest with you. I looked back through some emails, and probably we're talking a little bit over 3 years now that we've been having some semblance of these issues.
A lot of people have been taking to social media, Darren. I don't know how much of it you're reading, but what do you say to the curling fans today who have been paying close attention to this over the last 48 hours?
I have read a little bit. It's tough to keep up with it all. I've been trying to hang out with my boy quite a bit, but I do want to thank everyone, and I just want everyone to know that when I say something or do something, it's just me, and I get advised all the time not to do the things I do by people that I like and trust and still are friends with. And I laugh because I tell them, I'll get your advice, but I probably won't follow it. So I just kind of do what I think is the right thing for me. And I find it's easy to tell the truth over and over and over again. It's pretty hard to start covering half truths and lies and be consistent that way. So if you just tell the truth, you don't have anything to worry about.
It's true. Live your life on your terms, and you never need a public relations person to manage anything.
No, I don't need a PR guy. I'll admit to the mistakes I make.
Big of you to be here today, Darren, and taking time away, valuable time with your family. But it was important for us to have you on. So we're really grateful for you being here today.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thanks for everything. And really, thank you, Canada. There's been a couple times in this past year that you guys have all kind of supported me in a tough time. And I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Be well. Take care.
Yeah. Bye, Darren.
Whew.
Yeah, it's not, again, the breakups are never easy. They were a very bonded team with what appeared to be great chemistry all along. He talks about sort of the fracture of that coming off in April and May. And sometimes part of that is success. And you want to get to that mountaintop peak, and you get there and you realize, oh, I still have the same problems or the same this or the same that. It doesn't change anything. So you're chasing this golden egg that you think is going to give you happiness. And you realize, okay, you're only as good as your last game, your last win, and you're to keep searching for more.
And Call, you and I have talked on this show a lot about the importance of chemistry in this game.
Yeah, it's everything.
And hasn't this really, in the most tangible way, hammered it home? Because we saw the team's performance at the trials, and there were things obviously bubbling in the background. So, you can't overstate in the game of curling the importance of chemistry.
Well, and I think he brought up a good point about being in the bubble and sort of feeling trapped in the bubble, that the normal things you could do for a little release,
right?
Whether that's going for a run outdoors, going for a beer with your friend, hugging your family, all of a sudden those things that are a little bit of an emotional release are gone. And in a highly stressful situation, first the Brier, then the Worlds. Because while they didn't perform well at the Olympic trials, finishing 3 and 5, they also finished off the podium in the World Championships. And that might have been sort of the start of the divisiveness, because that's, again, a pressure-packed situation. We always would drop a contract once we became Team Canada. I don't think it was legally binding, but it held us accountable at the start of the season that we promised to do A, B, C, and D, practice, train well, team first, etc. And it kind of would give you, we never needed it, but an out at the end of the year that, hey, we all said we would do this.
Wow.
And I highly recommend it. Some teams do it. Again, I don't think it would stand up in a court of law. Not that you're going to a court of law, except there is money on the line here. There's future earnings.
Right.
We were talking about Kathy Overton-Clapton, Kathy Overton and Jennifer Jones, Lisa Wiggle, Rachel Homan. And we also saw at the Olympic trials, every time they would cut to a big shot of Lisa Wiggle on the screen, she got an outpouring of applause, and we love Lisa. So from a crowd point of view, you don't want to judge anything on crowd. Nobody makes these decisions based on fans' reaction. You base it, make those decisions based on how do I strengthen my team, what works best for the team. But we definitely saw when we were in Saskatoon a lot of Lisa love. So lingering bits of that even there to this day, even though it's quite old.
Never a dull moment, Call. And of course, we're going to keep this thing going all the way to the Olympics. And our good friend Mike Harris is going to be along for the ride with us. And he's been watching and following this all today. And he joins us now. And Mike, whoa, you've seen it, you've heard it. What do you make of it?
Well, I was struck by a couple of things. One was I thought Brendan was a little, coached, I guess maybe would be kind of reading the script. And I'm sure, as much as he's not a professional, as you mentioned, there was certainly no lack of preparation into what he was about to say. And then, of course, Darren shooting from the hip, as he usually does, is hard not to love a guy like Darren, who's just pretty honest all the time. So what smells to me is the timing. I think Darren kind of let the team off the hook a little bit by mentioning he was thinking of leaving in May. So, this maybe not that big of a surprise to kind of have a breakup after the trials, after learning that. But timing is weird. I mean,
you don't see it very often.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And the other thing that struck me is that Darren knew that Brendan was going to, what were the words he used? It was do it to me hard or something. That was just like, because he knew the Lethbridge bar meant so much to him. So that's kind of a pretty damning statement. So I'm really, I'm not sure what to think. And I'm interested to see that, like you said, Colleen, remember when the other thing was Kathy O ended up making the Scotties the year after they split up with Jen, and the reception Kathy O got in PI was something else. And I suspect the Boo Birds might be out in Lethbridge for Team Bottcher. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So curling fans are pretty passionate, as we're finding out this weekend. So. But there's never an easy way. I think we've all been through it one way or the other, and there's never an easy way to do it. But the timing is, to me, is the mess.
The easiest way is at the end of the season, right? Because you're going, look, it didn't even work out. We didn't make provincials, or we played badly at the Canadians. We've got to make a change. And then, for the most part, while feelings are hurt, you make it with enough time so that somebody has from mid-April on to
right. And the other thing Brendan said, it happened to their team before, but that was Pat Simmons, who left on his own accord because he couldn't deal with the drama, so to speak. So the fact that and everyone when Darren came on board with Team Bottcher, it was he is such a breath of fresh air on any team, and he fit in so well because he was kind of that whatever you want skipper, whatever he was ready to just kind of do whatever got. And I think his point about the bubble was also pretty telling, where I think it just got to a point where he just, if you're that type of personality that like he is, he just kind of needs time on his own, and he didn't have that in this case. But we've all been on teams that kind of had outlived their effectiveness, so to speak. So this just, it seemed like everything kind of just was the process got sped up quite a bit, but they kind of had to stick together through the trials. There really wasn't much options, right?
I don't know. I would say they'd had to stick together through the Briar. I mean, he earned
I agree.
Right, and Brendan was also coy about, you would think you would just sort of wait until after the everybody's provincial and territorial playdowns. But
well, my first reaction was whatever was said in the meeting leading up to the cutting had to have been really something serious. Like
Right.
Darren's a nice guy, but whatever he called out on the team must have been really biting to Brendan. That's my only thing. I can't imagine. I was chatting with Havard Vad Pedersen from Ulsrud's old team this morning on just texting back. He goes, "How much would you have to dislike a person to cut them in the middle of the season? How bad does it have to be for something like this to happen?" So we're not hearing at all what really went down, other than Darren said Kark was the glue holding them together, which I love. I think that's great. Everyone needs someone like that on the team, but clearly there was some other stuff going on, and it's still it doesn't
Makes sense.
feel like the stories. We don't know enough about what actually happened.
Right.
So.
Mike, are we at the point in this sport where there needs to be a union or a better way to do this? Or is this just going to be how hurling is, where the skip is going to make the calls on the ice and the calls who's on the team?
Well, I don't know what a union would accomplish in that, other than it gets to a point where there's enough money in the pot, as Colleen mentioned. There's enough money in the pot where, okay, your team's now, say you're doing, call it $1 million a year in sponsorship. There needs to be some sort of contract in place and something that is legally binding. Colleen, I think I've spoken to Kevin Martin about this, not in great detail, but he used to say he used to have a contract that his players would all sign based on. It was all performance based and quantifiable stuff, not, I like to see you doing this or I'd like to see you doing that. It was all quantifiable, like workout schedules, regimes, that sort of thing. And there was a monthly stipend that was paid out to the athletes, that type of thing. So until we get to a point where all the teams are making that kind of money, I don't really see how a union is going to solve any of these issues. It's like you said, Colin, it's for the most part, it's the skips who are the ones who are putting together everything.
And whether you're an NBA team or an NFL team or any of those teams, the star player is then able to go to the general manager and say, this person needs to go, right? Sure. I mean, it's not just coming from upper management. I don't think.
But they're not the ones to do it. They're not the ones to.
Oh, but what everyone would know where the call is coming from. I think at some point having, and I'm sure Mike has made a lot of cuts in his time. I know when I've had to.
I usually get cut. It's usually.
When you have to make cuts, at some point you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, I just have to tell the person that we're done. And it is not easy. It is the hardest thing to do. And
I will say,
the person getting the news doesn't get it. And that's all you can do is say, I just told you that's all it is. There's no real reason. Usually it's performance. Sometimes it's personality. It's usually those two P's in curling that get you cut.
Correct. And the other part of it is that it's just, Darren said he was blindsided. Well, someone always gets blindsided, whether it's usually the person who's getting cut, the other conspirators, your ex-teammates, or, a lot like what Chelsea said, it's kind of a recipe for heartbreak. You have to be friends on a team to be successful. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, when you're not having the success anymore, your friends, usually you turn to your friends. In this case, you're turning away from your friends and looking elsewhere. So that's really hard, kind of in a social atmosphere to process, right? That's just it's kind of counterintuitive. The person you would first go to talk to about a situation now is on the other team and you can't go there anymore. And that's really the hard part for anyone who's been cut from a curling team or any type of
and certainly when we were on the bench in Saskatoon, Dev and I were already hearing rumors about the changes that we're going to be having by the end of the season. So this is not like anything new. What's new about it is that they're Brier champs going back to the Brier and the timing of it, as you mentioned. So. That's the only thing that's got everybody raising eyebrows.
Just wait till free agent frenzy in April and May.
I think it started. It's officially open season.
It is open season. Mike,
let's bring
thanks
back
for making the time. Awesome to see you. Thank you for this.
Happy to be here from beautiful Morris, Manitoba.
Yeah, what are you doing there?
Coaching Irene Shorey's team from Switzerland. We're here at the DeKalb Super Spiel, and we're in a C qualifier in about an hour. So
C qualifier.
More games.
C road's always the best road, isn't it? If you know you're going to get through, that's the way you want to go. So
exactly. Good luck, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. Great to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Morris, Manitoba. Awesome.
Yeah. And of course, speaking of Manitoba, the Olympic mixed doubles curling trials start in Portage la Prairie, Manitoba, December 28th. So that'll be the next thing we look forward to. And of course, we'll be covering that call. And we know that Lisa Weigel has been
Allowed to play.
Allowed to play.
Yeah,
So,
which is nice. Woo! All right. Well, we hope we brought some clarity,
yes.
at least getting both Brendan and Darren on and giving them some equal time to give their side of the story, because we realize this is a very passionate story for curling fans across the country who loved the Bottcher Express as they were.
Absolutely. I think Brendan had said earlier today they played more than 300 games together, and of course 4 consecutive Brier finals and finally winning it. The end of a great team, no doubt, Colleen.
No question about it. Anyhow, thank you very much for joining us today, and thanks to producer Soph. Dev, we'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon, Call. Thank you to the curling fans. We do this for you. Have a great Sunday night.